Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources for you this time.
Yeah, quite a mix. We have Ford's own words from My Life and Work, some analysis on his innovations, that rivalry with Sloan.
Right, plus a case study, even stuff from the Henry Ford Museum, so a lot to dig into.
And the core idea, as I understand it, is you want to know about that initial frustration, right? What really kicked things off for him.
Exactly, what was that pain point? And then how did he adapt and change things to build Ford Motor Company?
It's that intersection, isn't it? Personal drive, the vision, and those key moments where he had to make a big decision.
That's the mission for this deep dive, really get under the skin of how it all started and evolved. So let's jump right in. 19th century Michigan farm life.
Mm-hmm.
What was the pain there for young Henry?
Well, the sources are pretty clear. It was just incredibly tough physical work, relentless.
Uh-huh.
And Ford felt that directly. It wasn't just, not liking chores. It was a real sense of frustration. Like, there has to be a better way than this.
And we see signs of this early on, don't we? This wasn't just him complaining, like the tinkering.
Oh, absolutely. Constantly taking things apart, putting them back together, building water wheels, things like that.
That feels like more than just messing around.
It's a need to understand how things work, fundamentally. He wasn't just breaking stuff. He was figuring out the mechanics behind it all. It's that hands-on thing.
And he explicitly said he disliked the farm work.
All right.
Too much hard hand labor.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think it's less about being lazy and more about seeing inefficiency.
Right, seeing the sheer effort involved.
The human energy just poured into basic tasks. His mind was already looking for mechanical fixes.
And even out there on the farm, he sets up his own little workshop with scrap metal.
Yeah, odds and ends of metal. That's really proactive, isn't it? Shows that drive.
Definitely. He wasn't waiting for permission or the perfect setup.
He was creating his own opportunities right where he was. That's very entrepreneurial, even then.
So looking back at this early stage, what did he gain from all this discontent and, well, fiddling with machines?
Okay, 3 key things, I think. First, just foundational mechanical skills. He got a feel for how things worked.
Hands-on knowledge.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Second, because he lived it, he knew the problems. Inefficient transport, back-breaking labor on the farm, he saw the need directly.
Okay.
And third, it was all driven by genuine interest, intrinsic motivation. He wasn't doing it for school, he was doing it because he was fascinated.
So for listeners feeling maybe frustrated with how things are done now, what are the lessons here?
Well, first, pay attention to that frustration, those pain points you notice. They can be gold mines for ideas. Ask, is there a better way? Second, look at what you're naturally drawn to, those hobbies, those things you tinker with just because. They might point to a real path forward.
Makes sense.
And third, use that discontent. Don't just sit on it. Let it be the fuel for finding solutions, for innovating.
Okay, so farm life clearly isn't going to hold him. This mechanical pull is too strong. He heads to Detroit.
Right. Drawn by the factories, the machine shops. The industrial world offered what the farm couldn't.
And that pain of the farm's limitations really pushed him there, it seems.
It was the catalyst, yeah. But even in the city, he found new frustrations, new things to improve. That drive didn't just vanish.
And we see his passion continuing, right?
Yeah.
Like first, just leaving the farm. That's a big deal.
A huge step into the unknown, purely driven by this mechanical interest. Shows real commitment.
Then the sources mention him, job hopping a bit. Moving if he thought he could learn more somewhere else.
Yeah, that's key. He wasn't just looking for stability. He was actively seeking knowledge, maximizing his learning.
Like a strategic learner.
Exactly. Absorbing everything he could.
And while he's got this day job at Detroit Electric, he's still working on his own engine at night, weekends.
That's dedication, isn't it? Pouring your free time into a complex personal project like that, it shows how deep that passion ran.
So this period in Detroit, working these different jobs, what did he really get out of it?
Well, a diverse set of practical skills, for one. Different shops, different techniques.
Right.
Also, working at Detroit Electric gave him a view of, like, a larger industrial operation, how things scaled up.
And probably connections, too. Even informally.
Likely, yeah. Rubbing shoulders with other mechanics, engineers, soaking up ideas, different perspectives. Informal networking, you could call it.
So what can someone learn from this stage? Maybe someone thinking about changing fields or just wanting to learn more.
Be proactive about learning. Don't just wait for it. Go find the places, the people, the experiences that will teach you what you need, even if it's not the obvious path.
Okay.
Also, realize that passion projects often take serious effort outside your main gig. Nights, weekends, it demands commitment.
Yeah, that resonates.
And finally, sometimes you need to take a calculated risk. If you have a strong interest driving you, stepping outside your comfort zone is often where the real growth happens.
Right, so he's got the skills, the passion. But then his first actual car companies, like the Detroit Automobile Company,
Right.
they failed.
They did. And that must have been painful. The pain of, having this vision, but not quite making it work commercially.
But it didn't stop him. It sounds like it actually made him more determined.
Exactly. Failure can be a powerful teacher. And for Ford, it seems to have solidified his resolve. It wasn't a reason to quit.
And there are signs of this, right? Like after that first failure, he says he'll never again put myself under orders.
Yeah, that's telling. He learned he needed control to execute his vision. It shows that resilience, that belief in his own way of doing things.
And then he gets into racing, building these powerful racing cars like the 999. That seems like a big risk.
A huge risk, but also incredibly smart, in a way.
How so?
It was high-stakes marketing. Winning races proved his engines worked, that his designs were capable. It generated massive publicity.
So it wasn't just for the thrill.
Partly, maybe, but it was also a very strategic way to build his reputation and attract attention, attract backers, potentially.
And even after those companies folded, he rents another shop just to keep experimenting, to figure out the business side.
Right. To find out what business really was, as the source says. He knew he was missing pieces beyond just the engineering. He needed to learn how to make it succeed as a business.
So these failures, they weren't really total losses then. What were the benefits?
Oh, absolutely not total losses. Huge learning experiences. He got a crash course in business operations, dealing with investors, the importance of having a really clear product vision. It also helped him figure out what kind of car the market actually needed, not just what investors thought they wanted.
And the racing helped with name recognition.
Massively. Made him a known quantity.
So for anyone listening who's maybe hit a roadblock, had a project not work out, what's the takeaway here?
First, try to see setbacks as data. What went wrong? Why? Learn from it. Don't just get discouraged.
Reframe it.
Exactly. Second, persistence is just crucial. Entrepreneurship is full of challenges. You have to keep pushing.
Right.
And third, be willing to adjust your strategy. Learn from the feedback, pivot slightly if needed, but keep that core vision intact. Don't be afraid to change how you get there.
Okay, so learning, persistence, it all leads to the Model T. And the pain here seems to be that cars were just toys for the rich.
That's the core of it. Ford saw cars as essential tools, potentially, but they were priced as luxuries. That disconnect really drove him.
He wanted to democratize the car.
Precisely. Make it accessible. A motor car for the great multitude. That was his explicit goal.
And that passion shows up in how the Model T was conceived, right? First, just that clear, unwavering focus on affordability and the mass market.
Absolutely. Laser focus. He knew exactly who he was building it for and what they needed, not the wealthy elite.
And second, the design itself, simple, utilitarian, no frills.
Totally intentional. Every component was designed for reliability and ease of manufacture, keeping the cost down. Function over form, initially.
Which ties into the third point, his initial resistance to offering anything but the Model T for a long time.
Yeah, he believed so strongly in that single, perfect-for-the-masses design that he didn't want to dilute the effort or complicate production. Any color, so long as it is black, came later, but the principle of standardization was there early.
So this intense focus, sticking to this one model for the masses, what were the big advantages early on?
Well, huge market potential, right. He tapped into a massive underserved demand. Nobody else was really doing that at scale.
Yeah.
It also built an incredibly strong, recognizable brand. The Model T was Ford.
Yeah.
Crucially, it enabled standardization. Focusing on one model meant they could really optimize how they built it, which leads directly to the next big thing.
Before we get there, what are the lessons from just the idea of the Model T for entrepreneurs?
Find a big unmet need and offer a practical, affordable solution. Sounds simple, but it's powerful.
Right.
Also, the importance of focus, especially early on. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Nail your core offering.
And simplicity can be a strength.
Definitely. Don't overcomplicate things unnecessarily. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one.
Okay, so the Model T is a hit, a massive hit. But now the pain shifts. They can't build them fast enough.
Exactly. Success created its own problem, a huge production bottleneck. Demand was just overwhelming their ability to supply.
And this, combined with Ford's constant drive for lower costs, leads to the moving assembly line.
The big one. It was born out of that frustration needing more cars, faster and cheaper.
And the sources talk about his, relentless drive for efficiency here.
Obsessed is probably fair. He saw inefficiency as waste, as the enemy, constantly pushing to speed things up and cut costs.
And they looked everywhere for ideas, didn't they? Not just other car makers?
Right. Watchmaking, gun making, even meat packing plants in Chicago. They were looking for any process that broke down complex tasks into simpler steps.
That's real out-of-the-box thinking.
It really is, not being constrained by how we've always done it in their own industry.
And Ford's belief that manufacturing methods should never stand still.
Continuous improvement baked right in. He knew that whatever they figured out today could probably be improved tomorrow. It wasn't a one-and-done innovation.
So, the moving assembly line.
Yeah.
What did it actually do? What were the results?
Just staggering. Assembly time for a Model T dropped from, over 12 hours down to about 93 minutes?
Wow.
Incredible speed up. That slashed production costs, which let him lower the price again, fueling even more demand.
And they could finally make enough cars.
Exactly. Production volume just exploded. It completely transformed manufacturing, not just for Ford, but for everyone.
What are the lessons here for people trying to innovate or run a business today?
Always be looking for ways to be more efficient. How can you use resources better? Streamline processes.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to look outside your own field for inspiration. Great ideas often come from unexpected places. Adapt them.
Yeah.
Never get complacent. Embrace continuous improvement. Always ask, how can we make this better, faster, cheaper?
Now, the assembly line was efficient, but it created a new kind of pain, didn't it, for the workers? Repetitive, monotonous work.
Yeah, the human cost. Efficiency came at the price of worker satisfaction. And turnover rates went through the roof. It became a huge problem.
Which leads to another radical move, the $5 day wage, doubling pay overnight. What was behind that?
It seems like a mix of things. Partly genuine concern about the high turnover and the grueling nature of the work.
Recognizing the problem.
Right. But also incredibly shrewd business strategy.
Us.
Well, first, addressing the turnover. Constantly hiring and training new people is expensive and inefficient. Stable workforce is better.
Makes sense.
Second, his belief that low wages are the most costly. He figured paying more would attract better workers, increase loyalty, maybe even boost productivity. Less quitting, more focus.
Interesting perspective, looking beyond the immediate wage cost.
Exactly, thinking long term. And there was another benefit, too.
Which was?
He created customers. His own workers could now potentially afford the cars they were building.
Ah,
The virtuous cycle.
Pretty brilliant, really. Solved a labor problem and expanded his market simultaneously.
So, lessons from the $5 day.
Think about the human impact of your processes. Employee well-being isn't just nice to have, it affects the bottom line.
Right.
Investing in your workforce fair pay, good conditions can actually be a competitive advantage. Builds loyalty, boosts productivity.
And think long term.
Definitely. Don't just focus on short-term costs. Sometimes a big upfront investment like higher wages pays off significantly down the road.
Okay, so Ford has revolutionized car making, production, even labor practices.
Yeah.
But then things start to change. Competition heats up, customer tastes evolve.
And this is where we see a different kind of pain, the pain of falling behind, of maybe getting stuck.
Because he resisted change for quite a while, didn't
He
he?
did. After so much success with the Model T and his methods, it seems he became resistant to deviating from that formula.
What were the signs of this stagnation, maybe?
Well, competitors like GM started offering features. Ford didn't. Electric starters, different colors, more comfort options, hydraulic brakes eventually. Ford was slow to respond.
He underestimated those features.
Possibly. Or just believed his focus on pure utility and cost was still paramount.
And he stuck with the Model T for a very long time, even as sales started to dip.
Yeah, there was significant internal pressure and clear market signals to introduce a new model, but he resisted for quite a while. Complacency might be a fair word.
And that famous line, any customer can have a car painted any color that he wants so long as it is black.
Whether he actually said it exactly like that or not, it perfectly captures that later inflexibility, that disregard for the growing customer desire for choice and personalization. The market was moving on.
But even with this later resistance, his earlier achievements were massive and lasting, right?
Oh, undeniable. The assembly line fundamentally changed global manufacturing. That's a huge legacy.
And making cars affordable.
Transformed society. Put America, and eventually the world, on wheels. That impact is immeasurable.
And he did eventually adapt, right? With the Model A.
He did, yes. Eventually, the market reality forced his hand. It showed that adaptation was possible, even if delayed.
So, looking at this final phase, the struggle with change, what are the really critical lessons here for entrepreneurs?
Continuous innovation isn't optional, it's essential. The market will change, competitors will emerge. You have to keep evolving.
Can't rest on your laurels.
Absolutely not. Second, listen to your customers. Really listen. Their needs, their desires, their frustrations, that's vital intelligence for staying relevant.
Okay.
And third, guard against complacency. Success is wonderful, but it can also breed inertia. Always challenge your own assumptions. Always look for the next improvement, even when things are going well.
So wrapping this all up, it's quite a journey. From that initial pain on the farm driving his mechanical curiosity.
Through the learning in Detroit, the setbacks, the sheer focused brilliance of the Model T.
The revolution of the assembly line, that surprising $5 day wage.
And then finally, the hard lesson about needing to keep adapting, even after world-changing success.
It really shows how frustration can fuel passion, how focus can drive breakthroughs, but also how crucial it is to stay flexible.
Exactly. Identifying pain points, learning constantly, persevering, having that vision, driving efficiency, remembering the human side, and never, ever stopping the process of innovation and adaptation. Those are the threads running through it all.
So for everyone listening, maybe think about this. What are the pain points you see around you, in your work, in your life? Could they be the start of something new?
And how do you balance having a strong, clear vision with staying open enough to adapt when the world inevitably changes around you? It's a tough balance.
Something to definitely mull over. We really encourage you to check out the sources we use for this deep dive and keep exploring Ford's complex legacy.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources for you this time.
Yeah, quite a mix. We have Ford's own words from My Life and Work, some analysis on his innovations, that rivalry with Sloan.
Right, plus a case study, even stuff from the Henry Ford Museum. So a lot to dig into.
And the core idea, as I understand it, is you want to know about that initial frustration, right? What really kicked things off for him.
Exactly. What was that pain point? And then how did he adapt and change things to build Ford Motor Company?
It's that intersection, isn't it? Personal drive, the vision, and those key moments where he had to make a big decision.
That's the mission for this deep dive, really get under the skin of how it all started and evolved. So let's jump right in. 19th century Michigan farm life. What was the pain there for young Henry?
Well, the sources are pretty clear. It was just incredibly tough physical work. Relentless. And Ford felt that directly. It wasn't just, not liking chores. It was a real sense of frustration. Like, there has to be a better way than this.
And we see signs of this early on, don't we? This wasn't just him complaining, like the tinkering.
Oh, absolutely. Constantly taking things apart, putting them back together, building water wheels, things like that.
That feels like more than just messing around.
It's a need to understand how things work, fundamentally. He wasn't just breaking stuff. He was figuring out the mechanics behind it all. It's that hands-on thing.
And he explicitly said he disliked the farm work.
All right.
Too much hard-hand labor.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think it's less about being lazy and more about seeing inefficiency.
Right, seeing the sheer effort involved.
The human energy just poured into basic tasks. His mind was already looking for mechanical fixes.
And even out there on the farm, he sets up his own little workshop.